In this video, we picked 3 Hario V60 recipes that we believe give you a solid framework for improving your pour-over coffee game. We picked recipes developed by James Hoffmann, Tetsu Kasuya, and method called Osmotic Flow. For each method, we will give a little insight into its origin and main brewing approach. Then we will take you step by step through brewing coffee using this recipe. And at the end, we will taste and compare different results. Unfortunately, there is not a single best recipe, the ultimate one that would work for everyone. But we hope this video will help you to pick or create your favorite V60 method. Let's start with James Hoffmann's recipe. He presented his ultimate V60 coffee technique back in 2019. I use it in different variations and came across this method in many coffee shops. The brewing technique focuses on small number of pours and increased extraction by using finer grind size and increased agitation. So let's try it. Let's brew James Hoffmann recipe. First, we'll prepare our filter and wash it with hot or even boiling water. If you have a plastic V60, it's not that important to have it hot, but if you have ceramic V60, the boiling water is better because it gets your dripper heated properly. Okay, we are gonna use 18 grams of coffee, grind on Comandante, 21 clicks. Even the bed. And now make a little well in the coffee grounds. This is so the water absorbs faster and more evenly into the coffee. Now we can start. We'll pour 45 grams of water. Usually James recommends to use 2 to 3 times the weight of the coffee. And straight after pouring, mix all coffee grounds until they are even. Don't worry to give it a proper stir. And now we wait 45 seconds. The pre-infusion phase is for all the CO2 to escape the coffee so we can extract more flavors. And it's especially important because now we have quite fine grind, so it helps to escape faster. Now, the first pour, it's 60% of our total volume, and that's up to 180 grams. We should pour this in about 20 seconds. This is for you to imagine the speed of the pouring. So you don't pour too fast or too slow, which would create different agitation and different brew time in the end. The second pour, it's coming in few seconds after the slurry comes down. And this one, which is 120 grams of water, will be up to 300 grams. It will also take around 80 seconds, so it's almost the same speed, perhaps just slightly slower. Now, we mix with spoon to the left, to the right, one time. This is to get all the coarse particles from the sides to sink to the bottom. And straight after that, we can give it a gentle swirl 3-4 times to get all the coffee concentrated on the bottom of the dripper so it gets extracted more evenly. Then you wait and draw down, and the whole brewing time should be around 3 minutes. I think this is the smallest amount of the coffee that you can use for this recipe, and perhaps it's even easier to use larger amounts for this method, for like 24-30 grams. So after the brewing, as you can see, when all the water leaves the coffee bed, we should have even leveled coffee bed where all the coffee is concentrated on the bottom and there are not large particles on the sides. So everything was on one place and the water flew through it evenly. And there is our coffee. The 4 to 6 method is created by Tetsu Kasuya, a Japanese World Brewers Cup champion. His method is called 4 to 6 because that is how you divide the total pours. The first 40% influences the level of acidity and sweetness, and the remaining 60% controls the strength of the coffee. I really wanted to include Tetsu because his brewing recipe was a big inspiration to me. He did an amazing job presenting how you can influence the flavors of your coffee through the brewing process. We will move to the second recipe of Tetsu Kasuya from Japan. So first, the same like the first method, we'll always preheat and rinse the filter with hot water to get rid of that papery taste. Paper filters are a topic by itself, but we are not getting into that today. We are using 18 grams of coffee again, but now it's a coarser grind. This is 23 clicks with Comandante. So the first part, 120 grams, is divided in 2 pours. For the blooming, 45 grams. And we will wait 45 seconds. We'll wait 45 seconds at each pour, not in the blooming phase, but each pour will take 45 seconds. So all you have to do is just pour the water and wait 45 seconds. There is no agitation in this method, only waiting. The second pour will be up to 120 grams. This is Tetsu's principle to divide the whole brew to first 40% and then to 60%. So for this coffee, for this Kenyan coffee, we chose to have smaller first pour to highlight the sweetness of it because there is plenty of acidity and we want to balance it with a nice sweetness. Now the drawdown until 1.5 minutes, and then the third, fourth and fifth pour will be all by 60 grams. So we'll pour now up to 180 grams. We try to pour on the coffee, so you will avoid the walls of the filter and always try to go from the middle up to the walls. $2.15 and the next pour will be up to 240 grams. From the middle and slowly circles towards the edges. Tetsu is a really cool guy and a brewer, and you can find experiments that he does on his Instagram or social media. He's using different, very old Japanese methods, and this is a combination of few of these methods, but what I like is how beautifully divided and easy this brew method is. The last pour at 3 minutes is up to 300 grams. The pouring speed is medium, so as you could see, when all the water is out through the coffee bed, we always pour to the same level like we poured the first pour, so we are not increasing the level of the coffee. total time should be between 3.5 and 4 minutes. Okay, now as you can see, we have the coffee is ready, and if you can see, we have a different coffee bed than with the first method. So what's the difference is that we keep the level of the water quite low. The coffee bed should be flat, and there could be some of the coffee particles on the side of the filter. Usually the level of the coffee for this recipe is about 2 centimeters above the level of the coffee bed. There you go. The last method is called Osmotic Flow and was made popular by a Japanese company called Kafek. They are known for producing high quality coffee filters. However, this style of slow brewing is not completely new and has long history in Japan. This method calls for a very gentle and slow pouring over a very small surface of a coffee bed. The goal is very low agitation during pouring. Honestly, it's a very different method to any other we use, and we are really curious to give it a try. So, the third method, Osmotic Flow. Again, this is too boring to repeat, but we're gonna rinse that paper filter. Osmotic Flow works in completely different principles and way than our first method, so it's gonna be really interesting to try and taste it. We are using 18 grams of coffee that's grind really coarse like a French press. This is 30 clicks on Comandante. First pour is going to be 45 grams. And in this method, during whole pouring, it's very important to pour slowly. We will let it bloom for 40 seconds. And now we will do central pour slowly into the middle until the coffee bed lifts itself, and then we stop. We will just do few pulses until we reach the half of the total brew. Kafek, that created this method or that promoted this method, Kafek recommends to do 1/3 of the pour, but I find it better and easier to go to the half of the total brew volume. Okay, after letting the coffee bed breathe, we're gonna do small continuous pour. Draw a small circle. And when the coffee bed starts to raise, we'll give it a break again and continue just doing the same until we reach 300. In the end of the brewing, perhaps last 10%, we increase drawing the circle all the way to the edges and do a quick last pour to get the coffee finally submerged into the water. The whole brewing time should be between 3 to 4 minutes, so don't be afraid to do more slower pours. Now it's going to be our last pour, so from the center, quickly to the edges and finish. We are finished. 3 minutes and 25 seconds. As you can see, this is again totally different bed, which is pretty cool that you can play with these methods and get totally different results. So have a look. The coffee bed, it's almost on the same level. So the water didn't raise the coffee and it stayed in the middle, and we were pouring only through the center that should be drawing all the flavors from around. This is osmotic method. And now let's try. Now that we brewed all 3 recipes, we're gonna look at their differences. Let's start with the James method. It produced really balanced cup with a round body and lively acidity. Aftertaste was long and very sweet, which complemented the juiciness of this Kenyan coffee. What I liked about this recipe is that you extract a lot of the coffee and its sweetness. It's very pleasant, but you have to be also careful. If you overdo the agitation phase, you will get dry and astringent aftertaste in your brew easily. Also, I reckon it would be more suitable method for dense, lighter roasted coffees, because that's where we want the extraction to be really high. The second method was Tetsu recipe. It created really crispy acidity, very clean taste and layered structure in the flavors. I liked that the juiciness of this Kenyan coffee was bursting at you, and it was super clean and very pleasant actually. I think that Tetsu method is great to play with, to learn how brewing or pouring influences the flavor of the coffee. You can easily adjust for more fruity or sweeter cup, as well as understand and change the strength and body of the brew. I also like the juicy and clean taste it produced, and it's relatively easy to replicate. And the last method, Osmotic Flow. The flavor is different to the other 2 brews a lot. It's milder or softer, and acidity is muted, while in aftertaste I got a lot of time hint of bitterness. What is interesting and what I like the most is the body and the viscosity of the brew, and most of the time it produces really syrupy texture. Osmotic Flow is something cool to try. If you want to experience a method that creates really different cup of coffee that you are used to, and you have pouring kettle that allows you to pour slowly and gently, you should give it a go. Also, I have not tested dark roast as I am not fan of them, but that's where it could produce better results, and I will definitely try it in the future. So what is the main takeaway from this video? There is not a perfect method that is universal for all the coffees. These 3 techniques should give you a great foundation for creating your own pour-over recipe. Now it's your turn to have fun while brewing a cup of coffee, and don't be afraid to experiment. Enjoy your coffee and see you next time!